Welcome back to the Iron Mike podcast. I'm Mike Wollard. Super excited to be here. For those of you watching on YouTube, we have video instead of just the still art. So that's always exciting. Trying to put into practice what I've kind of been talking about the past couple of weeks of that perfection, everything's got to be right before I take action type of deal. And so I was like, you know what? This is a good enough environment for me to be able to post, video along with it and just give people kind of be able to build a relationship, some kind of, personality, seeing who the man behind the voice and that sort of thing. And also see how awkward I get with my hands and all that fun stuff. Everybody likes to see, how somebody interacts when they've got to talk by themselves instead of just being able to stare at a screen. So I'll do my best to keep everybody entertained and all that. The thing I want to kind of talk about today, or at least kick us off with, is just the concept of resistance. And I've mentioned in the past kind of how, pressure makes diamonds, and, you hear sorts of phrases and sayings and things like that throughout your life, but kind of being able to see the negative side of what that resistance can look like. And so it's not as much pressure as it is, to do something, to provide for your family, to, get stuff done at all costs type of deal. So it's not necessarily a motivator or a pressure type of resistance, but it's a resistance that keeps you from doing what you want to do, what you need to do, those sorts of things. And so things that can just hinder us from growth. So one of those first resistances is just a resistance of belief, just a belief that you can do it, belief that you can't do it. It's kind of whatever's kind of ingrained in you, that first kind of hurdle of doing something. For me, it's that, launching a podcast, launching a fitness business, launching really sort of anything. There's always in the back of your mind that, that imposter syndrome, that kind of self-doubt of like, do you belong here? Can you do this sort of thing? And so that resistance of belief is something that took a long time for me to get over, and just to feel validated and affirmed in what I'm doing and who I'm helping. And so every client testimonial not only is a super exciting journey to have been a part of, to help them achieve, and really just to make them, be the hero in their own story type thing, to get that confidence. But it also, every success story affirms me that I know what, that I know what I'm doing. And because that's something that I've often struggled with. You've got clients that everybody's body's different. And so you've got certain ones that are, their bodies are more stubborn than others, or they're more difficult, or they have different, life circumstances, whatever that is. Lots of different factors come into play when it comes to coaching clients. And so some are just super easy. Everything happens exactly how it's supposed to happen. And then you have others where, are they eating too much? Are they eating too little? And you've got to kind of balance out all these factors. So that's number one, is just that resistance of belief. The second kind of resistance is that resistance of past. So past failures, past mistakes. For a while, for me, it was relationships and trust issues that came from a lot of those. And then, a lot of self-doubt, lack of self-confidence, things like that, all through middle school and high school, definitely through college, and even often today, kind of depending on where kind of my head's at. It's that resistance of past, and just remembering what I've been through, remembering what I've gone through, which again can be a good motivator, but it can also be something that holds you back. You failed before. I've posted a reel that gets 50 views right after one that gets 3,000. And so it's like, oh man, like, maybe I'm not doing this, or, you have clients that aren't getting success as quickly as you thought they should, or even the what you promised on the sales call. So now you have that sort of self-doubt that kind of creeps back in. So there's a lot of different things like that that flare up in the past that you kind of remember throughout, that can kind of keep you from doing something in the future. You do something, it doesn't work how you expected. It's, of course, you pivot, you try again, you say and do all these things that are supposed to help, but in the reality, in your back of your mind, you remember the outcome from last time you tried to do something like this. And so it can really hold you back in a lot of different ways. And then thirdly is that resistance of judgment. So this is probably one of the biggest ones that took me to overcome, to hurdle, and to get through, and probably what's most prevalent to me today. When I moved to Northwest Arkansas, I left I left family behind. I left most of my very into it fitness people behind, even, working at a gym and stuff. Luckily, I met a really good friend at Fitness One, or made a really good friend at Fitness One that I worked out with every day. So then even leaving Fitness One and going out on my own, I left a big part of that fitness culture, being surrounded by people who want the same thing as me, who eat the same way as me. A lot of my friends, a lot of people I hang out with, like, fitness just isn't it's not their thing. They're, have other hobbies, other interests, other things like that. So for me, posting about fitness all the time, being, obsessed, whatever that looks like, it's that fear of judgment that what I post, that what I put out there, what I say, what I do is going to be talked about, behind my back, later on, and of course, and you all chuckle hearing that, and it's stuff that obviously doesn't matter. And people that are doing that probably aren't, necessarily real friends in the first place, but that just kind of stems from not having super solid relationships growing up, super solid relationships with friends, like deep levels like that. And just a lot of self-doubt and things like that growing up. So all of that fear of judgment, caring what other people think, being a people pleaser is something that can really be a big resistance in how you grow and how you change and how you, especially being self-employed. If we have friends that are photographers, we have friends, that are artists that are, doing whatever. And so when you're self-employed and you're putting out this product, if people don't want it, that sucks. Graphic designer friends, things like that. Your job is to bring a product, to bring an end result. And so as you're putting that out there, if people aren't pleased with that, if people don't want that, I mean, that's our job, is to be judged by what we create. And so it's tough sometimes. And so all that kind of being said and kind of wrapping up, that success that we kind of like strive for, a lot of people that aren't necessarily there are the people that are going to judge you, are going to look down on you, that sort of thing, for what you're doing, what you're trying to do. At the end of the day, those people are kind of, most of the time, are uncomfortable in themselves. Most of the time, that those people that aren't lifting you up, that aren't building you up and cheering you on and trying to help you be successful. If you have a problem or an issue or things like that with something that your friend is doing, then, turn around and make sure that you're doing what you can to help them and to bring them along. And if there's adjustments that you see, then point them out, like, hey, like, you're doing this, like, from the experience I've seen, maybe you could try this. There's ways of being helpful instead of just, trying to tear people down to make you feel better about yourself. Most of the time, those people that kind of act and feel that way are dealing with their own uncomfortableness themselves, their lack of success, or they're not happy with their job, or they're not, whatever stage of life they're in, they just kind of lash out to make sure that everybody else, feels that same way as them. When you're happy, you're successful, you're enjoying the job that you're doing, that makes a lot of people uncomfortable because they're so set in their ways and they're so unhappy with where they are. So I don't have an exact solution to what that resistance looks like. I know those things exist, and I know that I think the big way to be able to react and to be able to combat that is to simply be aware of it, be self-aware with that resistance exists. Surround yourself with people who do cheer you on, who do support you. That's been the best thing to ever happen to me personally, is being able to sign on with John and Angela and coach with them and help them grow their business while also helping Mike Wollard Training grow. But man, they're my biggest cheerleaders, like they've helped me come out of the box. Like, I never in my wildest dreams probably would have launched a podcast except for John constantly telling me how comfortable I am in front of the camera and how good I am at talking and things like that. And I still don't necessarily see that, but it's enough of a motivator for me. I'm a very big words of affirmation person. So if I know that I have somebody in my corner cheering me on, I mean, we're set. I'll work for free nearly. Maybe not for free, John, so don't get any ideas. But yeah, just being encouraged and having those words of encouragement throughout and being supported, for me personally, maybe not for everybody, but that kind of support just goes a long way. So there's your little rant for this morning. Super gloomy Tuesday morning at that. Cold weather's running in. It's gonna be great. Lots of ice tomorrow. So let's dive into some of the questions for this week. I had 3 submitted this time around that we'll cover, and some that we'll push off to next week. But one of them was just common gym injuries and how to avoid them. So this is actually super common from beginning lifters and from all the way to advanced lifters. Gym injuries are near impossible to completely avoid, whether it's you being super new and doing things incorrectly, having bad form, all the way up to you're an advanced lifter and now you're lifting really, really heavy. The different types of injuries, but the injuries happen nonetheless. So a few of the what I kind of see, or at least methods to help kind of prevent that. Number one is just being warmed up before you start lifting. I can't tell you how many times that I see people come in, it's 15 degrees outside. They walk inside and immediately go straight to a bench and start, bench pressing and lifting and stuff, no warming up the shoulders, no even walking on a treadmill, no sort of warm up at all. So when those muscles are nice and cold and tight, and then you start lifting and putting resistance against them, those joints aren't warmed up. It creates a lot of tension, creates a lot of pressure. And those are things you don't want to happen. Those are, where injuries start to come into play. Not to mention how it affects recovery in the long run to not warm up and cool down pre and post workout. I'm really bad about cooling down. John and I have been talking lately how we hit legs last Wednesday, I think, and our hamstrings are still like torched. We're bending down to pick something up and we're having to, which I guess it's helping us to bend at the knees, but that's because the tightness in our hamstrings prevents us from just bending over and picking something up or tying our shoe or whatever. I had to almost sit down on the ground yesterday to tie my shoes. And so for starters, just using the treadmill, elliptical, whatever, walking for 10 minutes, getting your heart rate to 100, 130 beats per minute, just getting a nice sweat going. It has a lot of benefits just biomechanically and warming up your muscles and getting everything ready for the work you're about to do. But even mentally, you just drove in, you just left work, you scarfed down food, whatever it is. That 10 minutes allows you to put some music on, put a podcast on, whatever it is, and just kind of lock in, go over the movements you're about to do, kind of make some sort of a plan for your workout, and just get ready for the session. After that, being able to go into some sort of dynamic warm-up. So all those workouts you did in football, all of those sorts of things where, you're going up and down the court, you're skipping, you're over the hurdles, opening the gates, doing stuff for your hips, things like that. Foam rolling, I always hit my big muscle groups right after I warm up. I start foam rolling, make sure I'm hitting my lats, my glutes, hamstrings, quads, calves. All those muscles are still involved. Even if I'm benching, my shoulders are back, my lats are engaged, I'm nice and tight. So everything's getting involved throughout those big compound movements, even if it's not the direct muscle that you're trying to hit. So I make sure I spend 2 to 3 minutes foam rolling, and then I do a little more dynamic warm-up, moving around, making sure that I'm stretching and working all of my muscles through that full range of motion. I get lots of internal and external rotation. My shoulders are notoriously pretty bad, pretty stiff, lots of gaming, lots of rounded shoulders. And so constantly working, even as I'm sitting here, I'm slouched forward. So lots of work towards building up that upper back and those shoulders to help have better posture. So warming up through all of those and making sure that I'm moving everything through its full range of motion. So that way I'm ready for the lift itself. And then lastly, that cool down at the end. So making sure that after you've worked out, you're doing some foam rolling, maybe some static stretching, really even just a slow pace walk for 5 to 10 minutes on the treadmill just to get the blood kind of redistributed throughout the body, cooling everything down. A lot of the muscles are super tight at that point. I know I always feel it a lot, as you're benching, you're creating tension and micro tears in that chest fiber. So now everything just kind of rounds forward. And so I even try to do some pulling movements at the end of a chest session when I'm on my game, when I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing. John's probably we don't do that. That's why, because I've been just kind of getting in and out lately, because we've been so busy. And so that kind of pours into, I think, what causes so many people to have these inefficient workouts or these often painful workouts. Is just that time frame of, you've got 45 minutes to get in and out, and you spend 15 minutes warming up and 10 minutes cooling down. Now you've got 15, 20 minutes, whatever it is, to knock out a workout before you've got to leave, shower, and head back to work. And so it does make it tough. I'm not desensitized to that or anything like that. I totally get that. That's a big part of it. But for those sorts of people, I'd say 5 minutes of a jog on a treadmill into 5 minutes of a super quick warm up, a 30-minute intense workout, and then superset stuff. You can still make really good gains in the gym and go maximum effort in a short amount of time. But I would superset stuff. Keep that rep range or rest time nice and short. 30 to 45 seconds. higher volume stuff that still gets you a good workout and still allows you to progress without it hurting, that time frame. And then a 5-minute cool down where you're, stretching, walk for 3 to 5 minutes, maybe a quick little foam roll or whatever, and then shower and get out of there. And then maybe if you do only have 45 minutes, then being sure to, tack on a walk that evening or, opposite of whenever you work out, just to kind of keep everything nice and loose and moving, keeping blood in the muscle to help that recovery. I think that's always really good, making sure that your protein's where it needs to be so you recover well. That's going to help with the injuries. What's going to happen a lot is people that overtrain. You hit chest on Monday. Let's say you do a push-pull leg split and you work out 6 days a week. You hit push on Monday, but you're not getting the adequate nutrition Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. So when then Thursday comes around, you're hitting chest again. So now you're overtrained, you're not recovered well, and now you're trying to hit it again. You're trying to kind of push through the soreness and things like that. And injuries can kind of happen that way too. And then lastly is usually the on the big list, but overall it's just lack of good form. I think a lot of people they kind of hop into it and just go for it, whether that's new lifters or even advanced lifters that have built bad habits. There's lots of different reasons that people have bad form, but most often it starts with just not knowing, but being super intimidated in the gym and not asking for help. So if you are new in the gym, I would encourage you to ask a trainer, ask an owner, reach out to somebody. Most gyms, I'm not going to say most gyms, feel out the gym. Snap Fitness, for example, I'm blessed to have been able to work there for about 3 years now, and the culture there, Jack, is very community driven, very hey, we're all family here, so let's take care of each other, to love each other, build a community here, be nice, be respectful of each other and the equipment there. And so that's made it super easy to be able to have people feel like they can go up and ask people for questions. My clients that I used to have in person feel comfortable going up to other members and saying like, hey, like Mike has this down, do you know what that exercise is? Where can I perform that type of deal? And even if they come in on off days, being able to come up and ask people questions and just to feel comfortable there. So if that is you, that I strongly encourage you to be able to go up and talk to people and ask them like, hey, like where's the machine chest press? And they can at least point you to that. And, YouTube stuff, it takes 10 seconds. You've all got your phones on you. So it takes 10, 15 seconds to pull up a video and just to make sure you're doing it right, making sure that's set up, making sure you're nice and tight, making sure that everything is set up the way it needs to be, the height of the seat is where it needs to be, et cetera, et cetera. The gym equipment, even at Snap, has QR codes that you can scan that pull up a video that shows you how to use that particular machine. And so it's little stuff like that that is really going to help prevent that injury. I'm trying to think of any other little tips and stuff. Imbalances, too much push, not enough pulling, things like that. Those can cause muscular imbalances that affect things. But overall, it's usually the not warming up and cooling down, and it's the lack of proper form, whether that's going too heavy or just not doing it right from the beginning. So kind of getting those into check and trying to figure out how to fit those into your workouts can really help and be beneficial. So next question we have from a good buddy of mine was, how does a small guy get big? This particular guy, has been small his whole life, from as long as I can remember. Incredible dancer, has just a very skinny frame that allows him to just move in ways that I definitely cannot. But I get this question a ton because every person that I know that's trying to put on size, that's trying to get stronger, that's trying to whatever, number one is you got to eat more. And you tell them that and they're like, no, you don't understand. Like, I eat a lot. I go to McDonald's and I eat 3 cheeseburgers. I do this, I do this. Terrible strategy. But for a lot of people, I always use my brother as a prime example because he's somebody that, pretty much ate junk, whatever he wanted growing up, was able to kind of eat and do whatever. But as I got more into fitness, I kind of like paid closer attention to his eating habits. And yes, he ate Pop-Tarts and Sweet Tarts and, whatever else, but it was, very small amounts. He'd eat a bag of chips and be good for a couple hours, or he'd dump his Sweet Tarts into a big bowl, but then he would have like 2 an hour. So he really wasn't eating as much as I thought that he was. So, he's 140 pounds soaking wet and about, 5'10", 5'11" at the time. And then he's getting ready to go off to college and was like, I don't want to be the skinny kid. And so we started hitting the gym hard. So I guess let me address the eating more. So some people just aren't hungry. They make mass gainer shakes out there. I worked at GNC for 3 years. So that was a big part of what I did. I'm either selling stuff to help people get skinny, which here's my caveat that no supplement is a miracle worker, a miracle drug that's going to help you get to where you want to be without hard work, dedication. Supplements are there to supplement your lifestyle, your already locked in lifestyle, even to the point of steroids. Like if you think Chris Bumstead, who's Mr. Olympia the past couple of years, if you think that he didn't already have a good routine, a good system in place, and had just reached his genetic potential, and so he needed a boost if he was going to make it to the top, you're crazy to think that he didn't already have something good in place. And so that's always when I have young guys wanting to hop on testosterone, when I have dads coming in to, golly, don't get me started, when I had dads coming into GNC trying to get their 14-year-old kids on human growth hormone because they want them to be able to be the best kid on their baseball team. I mean, just gut-wrenching stuff where you're like, do I call the police? Do I call child services? Like, this isn't okay. But all that being said, none of that's going to outplay or allow you to slack off, allow you to be less disciplined to get the job done. But that being said, when you are eating as much as you can, you're not, you're full all the time. Like, you're just stuffing it and doing what you can to get the food in. Incorporating something like a mass gainer is beneficial. Most of them are not going to be super cost efficient. So what I always have clients do, if that is their goal, and they're like, listen, I'm capped out at 2,000 calories, which I can't fathom, but hey, you're capped out at 2,000 calories. You don't know what to do. Getting a mass gainer. We used to sell like these 20-pound buckets of mass gainer at GNC, and we would just have clients or customers, whoever, do like a scoop, maybe like half the serving size, do a scoop or two in a protein shake, but then throw in like some peanut butter and some banana. And so you can make this 1,500 calorie shake that's got, 80, 100 grams of protein in it, a lot of carbs, a lot of fat, so a lot of calories in this shake, to the point where you're drinking, 1,500 to 2,000 calories, almost doubling what you're normally eating. This obviously isn't the optimal way to do it, but some clients just genuinely are that full all the time. So you've got to do something. If you can't force feed it, then being able to drink it that way is a good option for some people until that appetite starts getting there. Once you have muscle and that metabolism is kind of increased and things like that, and you need the recovery, the appetite's going to catch up to you eventually, which it did for my brother. He got to 185 and then was texting me, over Christmas break, like, hey, how do I lose a gut? So it's definitely possible. So that's one end of it, is you just have to eat more. So whatever that looks like, doing simple carbs, so making sure that you're eating things like that aren't going to keep you full for very long. Chinese food's like notorious for this sort of thing. Lots of sodium, so I wouldn't necessarily recommend eating Panda every day, but going the route of ground turkey, chicken, whatever that looks like. So keeping your meats lean, but then making sure that you're getting a lot of white rice or pastas, things like that. They're going to really help with the quick energy, so fueling good workouts, but also making sure that you'll still be hungry in an hour and a half. That's all super beneficial. Using sauces kind of to your advantage, you get an extra 100, 200 calories that way. Cooking in oils to help get some fats in. Things like that aren't necessarily super filling is always super beneficial. The other side of the coin is lifting heavy. I see guys that wonder why they're not making progress, but they've been benching and lifting and whatever the same exact weight that they've been using for the past I don't know how many years. So they haven't made any progress. They're not progressively overloading. They're not pushing themselves. Their workouts are 3 out of 10. They just kind of go in, go through the motions and expect results. And that's not the way that the body works. Our body adapts. The stimulus that we use for our body very quickly becomes, it very quickly adapts to what we're doing. And so making sure that, unless you're a beginning lifter, you've got, 6 to 9 months, maybe a year, to where you can kind of have this get results, get stronger, build muscle without necessarily eating in a surplus type of thing. But once that year max is kind of up, that's when it's okay. You need a slight surplus to build muscle, and then you need a deficit to lose fat type of deal. You can't do both as efficiently anymore. And so that's when you really have to make sure you're eating well, but you've got to make sure that you're getting stronger. You've got to make sure that you're pushing the weight, increasing reps, whatever that progressive overload looks like. A combination of the two, hitting your compound lifts so you get the most bang for your buck, making sure that you're lifting heavy, and then on those compound lifts, so sticking in that 3 to 5 to kind of 8 range. I don't really go much higher than that, but then supplementing that on your accessory lifts with anywhere to 8 to 15, 6 to 15 reps on some of those heavier movements for accessory work. So making sure you're smashing triceps. A lot of times for arms, I like doing drop sets. So you're doing 6 to 8 reps of a super heavy tricep press down, and then immediately drop to a little bit of a lighter weight where you're hitting 12 to 15 reps. So you're getting kind of both sides of the coin of really overloading in that stimulus, overloading that muscle, and then going into maybe some more strict form, more strict press downs with a lighter weight that gets that full contraction, that full range of motion from the muscle. So those kind of combined together really help with being able to grow and to build muscle and to continue pushing forward. Using a journal, using some sort of an app to track your progress is super important as well. Making sure that, if you're being able to look back and see workouts you did and making sure that you're getting stronger each time, that you're trying to progress each time you're in there. Having a set program is also super important. Some of the clients that, I get maybe necessarily don't want a program that they just want to lose weight. They don't care about anything else. They just want me to get them from point A to point B, and that's fine. But I do have clients that, if it's strength, if it's size, if it's muscle, like that's their goal. That makes that specific program that much more, from a lifting perspective, that much more important. So having set blocks where you're doing the same exact movements and workouts weeks 1 through 4, but you're changing up the reps, or you're changing up your reps in reserve. So maybe you're doing, a set of, a 3x3 on bench press with, 75% of your 1 rep max. Well, then next week bump that to 77.5% of your 1 rep max, and then to 80, and then to 82.5, and then change up, after that month block. Then now you're changing things up and moving forward. But it's that you got to keep some things consistent. Otherwise, you're never going to get the results that you're looking for, and you're never going to be able to get those results. Get the what's the word I'm looking for? I keep thinking that I forgot to press record on my phone to capture the video, so it keeps distracting me. But all I say, making sure that you have some consistency so you can see the progress that you're making, see the gains that you're making, et cetera, et cetera. And so, yeah, eat more, lift heavy. I know it's easier said than done, especially on the eating side of things. But it's super important. It's what has to happen to make those gains and to get bigger, and it'll happen a lot easier than you think that it will. Some people just have really fast metabolisms, and so you just have to eat more, but those mass gainer shakes can really come into play. And again, you don't have to do the full serving size because the container will be gone in a week, so it's just not real cost effective. But 1 scoop or whatever of that combined with some peanut butter and bananas and high calorie foods like that will really go a long way in helping you put on size. So lastly is just simple advice for getting started in the gym. And so this is a pretty common problem for starters. If you haven't worked out or anything like that in 2 years, I recommend against going in and trying to hit it 5 days a week, hour-and-a-half sessions, things like that. A, you've got to know yourself, but B, you've got to set yourself up for success. You have to set yourself up for, that you're going to be sore, that you're going to be exhausted and tired. You're still trying to, figure out what healthy nutrition looks like. You're still trying to figure out all these things. And so making sure that, if that's 1 workout a week and you're walking the rest of the days, that's totally fine. And then, you go up in a few weeks, now you're, okay, like this isn't so bad, I'm not as sore anymore. Let's go to 2 days. Then let's go to 3 days. And so just slow game it, slow play it, and make progress that way, and just kind of get into a rhythm of, I tell clients a lot of times, like, oh, I'm just sore, I don't want to lift today. It's like, cool, still go to the gym and walk there. Instead, that keeps that habit of constantly, every day at 5 p.m. you're going to the gym, or every day at 5 a.m. you're going to the gym. So whether you go in there and you just stretch and foam roll and work and walk on the treadmill. I used to go into the gym on Saturday mornings and just do active recovery stuff. When I was at Fitness One, they had the turf area. I'd take my shoes off and I'd just grab a foam roll for a bit, do some active recovery type stuff, maybe a little bit of core, lots of stretching, lots of mobility work. But it just kept that routine of me always going to the gym on those days. And so that's my first caveat before I get into some of these. But for people who are kind of in a routine and they're just looking kind of like, what's the basics? What are just some kind of like tips for getting started? Mentally, you've got to know that everybody's there on a journey of their own. Everybody is going through something similar. Everybody started exactly where you are, of just not knowing exactly what to do, where to go, where everything is. So I encourage you on your first gym visit to go in, talk to an employee there and have them show you around the gym. Just familiarize yourself with the gym, where equipment is, things like that. Second, do some research on the front end, like kind of plan out your workout, find a workout program for free from bodybuilding.com or something like that that's just super simple for beginners. And then each exercise, YouTube the video of what that exercise is, so you know what it looks like, how to set it up, that sort of thing. So that way you go into the gym prepared and ready to do whatever those exercises are. Start simple, 3 sets of 12 on absolutely everything. Don't even overcomplicate that. If you're a beginner, you're going to get results doing that. Feel out the weight. If it was a little light, go up a little bit. A little light, go up again. Again, jot everything down, write everything down. Some gyms like Snap, for example, has like some key or some like cards, some sheets or whatever that allow you to, fill in the workout, fill in the reps, fill in the weight, and kind of keep track of it. So every time you go in, you can see kind of what you did last time. GNC, Amazon, they all sell really cheap little like workout journals that allow you to do the same thing. So get something like that to be able to track your progress. And then from then, something like this science type stuff, it's 150 minutes of physical activity a week. So, 5 days a week, going 30 minutes. These are people that have already kind of established, some sort of a gym routine. You could even do 3 days a week, for an hour and a half, or for an hour, whatever that looks like. You've got plenty of options to make, to kind of fit it in and make it work. For a lot of people, lifting 3 days a week, walking the other 2, walk all 5 days. If you enjoy that, putting a podcast on, catching up on Netflix, whatever it is, there's a lot of people that really push these like absolutes, like, okay, if you're, watching Netflix on the treadmill, you're not going hard enough, or little things like that. And that's just super unnecessary and not helpful to anybody. If somebody is walking on the treadmill and you belittle them or cut them down because they're, watching Netflix while they walk, well, now that person is not going to come back, and so I don't think too fondly of those sorts of people, but making sure that, you have some sort of motivator. If you hate cardio, the steps are important. The research is just astounding, and how much just hitting, your 10,000 steps a day, does for you, just from a cardio standpoint, from a heart health, from blood flow, mentally. There's so many different reasons to go out and just get your steps in, type of deal. And so whatever it takes to get you outside walking or in a gym walking, whatever that looks like, whatever that motivator is, do it. I don't have any issues with a client, watching Netflix or a podcast or a YouTube video. I watch YouTube videos. If you think I'm walking on a treadmill for an hour without some sort of content that I can consume or watch or whatever, it's not happening. So that would be my advice for it. Tracking your steps, again, is another good thing for just starting in the gym, starting your fitness journey. Tracking your steps and kind of I use the steps kind of as an activity. And if I have a client that's already decently low on food, I like to adjust food as little as possible. I'd rather, if they're not, starving, if they're not whatever, I like to keep it as stationary as possible until like a last resort. I'd rather up their cardio, add an extra 1,000, 2,000 steps, things like that, and see if we can get the scale to move before I start adjusting their food. When you start adjusting food really quick, then they hit that nutrition plateau pretty quick. They start to get hungry a lot quicker. Their hormones start to get a little more out of control. So I like to leave that as a last resort. But whenever the flip side of the coin, if they're pushing super hard and they're already running 5 miles a day and whatnot, and then they get to that kind of like overtraining type of situation, then maybe I'll tailor back some of that physical activity and kind of play with their nutrition a little bit. But tracking your steps, super important and super helpful for kind of helping you get, breakthrough plateaus and even just feeling and getting healthier and getting to that 10,000 mark. Watching your portions is another easy one. So before even having to delve into tracking your macros and things like that, pretty much everything on this list here can get super overwhelming if you try to do everything at once. So just kind of giving you bullet point options of things that are going to help. So once you're lifting and you're kind of in some sort of a rhythm there, simply watching your portions is a super easy way to cut back on some of those calories and just to kind of feel, make everything kind of fit into that daily life. Usually most clients are eating pretty close to their, basal metabolic rate or their total daily energy expenditure. They're eating pretty close. They've gained, 5 pounds in a year type thing. And so it's nothing crazy or out of the ordinary. So just adding physical activity usually helps. But once that physical activity is added in, and then cutting back on the portions, not getting seconds, make sure you're getting veggies, make sure you're prioritizing protein, things like that, kind of watching the portions you're getting of a lot of those heavy carb, heavy fat foods, just to help kind of balance those calories out. That's super important and helpful. Same thing, that's usually my tips for any, Thanksgiving, Christmas, any holidays like that, is just to watch the portions. You're not going to be able to avoid all those good, sweet foods, but if you can have 1 slice of pizza and not 8 slices of pizza, then that's a win. So being able to fit in, and it kind of preps you for that if it fits your macros type thing. It's still being able to fit in a lot of your favorite foods, but just not eating as much of it and being able to kind of find that balance. Drinking half your body weight in ounces of water. Obviously there's a point, if you're 400 pounds, then 200 ounces of water probably just isn't going to happen. But still, for most people, it gets close to that 80 to 100 ounces or even up to a gallon of water. A gallon of water is what I drink. I have 4 of these. I'm holding up a 32-ounce bottle for people just listening, but I drink 4 of those a day, and that gets me my water intake. Tracking and then once all that's kind of set in place, then you can get a little more specific with figuring out how many calories you're actually burning. So usually the easiest system for doing that, there's formulas you can find online, and a lot of times, we use those for clients to kind of get a rough ballpark, and then we'll dial it in after the first couple of weeks. But if we catch a client early enough, then what you can do is you track everything you eat for a week and you weigh yourself every day. And so as you go through, you'll weigh in, you eat your foods, you track everything, blah, blah. Don't even necessarily make any adjustments yet. But if you've already, watched your portions, regardless, eat and track everything and then weigh yourself daily. Write down that number at the end of the week, average out all those numbers and write that number down. Do the same thing for week 2, write down your weigh-ins every day, average those, and then kind of compare the difference. Did you gain a couple pounds? Did you lose a couple pounds? Did you pretty much stay the same? And so depending on where that number kind of falls, and that allows you to, okay, this is, on average, I'm gaining, half pound a week. Okay, so then let's put ourselves in, a 500 calorie deficit if weight loss, if fat loss is the goal. Nice and slow and steady, gets you a pound or 2 lost a week. We'll start there and kind of see what happens. And then you just kind of keep adjusting that way. MyFitnessPal can set your macros up. I'm not the biggest fan of MyFitnessPal just with how they distribute their macros. If you don't mind paying $10 a month, the Carbon Diet app, Lane Norton created it. It's one of my favorites. It does like weekly check-ins with an AI coach type thing that kind of monitors how much you've been eating, things like that, if you've been compliant to the macros they gave you, and then it adjusts based on that. So making sure you're super specific there. And then Macro Factor is another one that I'm a huge fan of. It has a different philosophy with how they track things. Jeff Nippard helped create it. It's Greg Nuckols and Eric Trexler that created that app. It doesn't require check-ins. It's an everyday kind of like adjustment type thing, which is really, really cool. But the downside to it is if you only like half track days, that can be an issue. So if you track halfway through, but then you ate a full day's worth of food, but you only tracked half of it, and then you weigh in the next day and it's off, it's going to throw off the system. So you've got to be really spot on with your tracking if you're going to use that one. But getting a tracking app that's then going to help you kind of set up your macros based on your height, weight, and age. Sometimes you can do that without even having to do the 2-week process I told you before, and just entering in your body fat percentage. You can go to a lot of gyms and they'll have some sort of a scanner to kind of get you in a ballpark, your weight, age, things like that, your height. Those are going to kind of calculate and kind of look what your physical activity plan looks like, goals, things like that. It'll kind of take all that information in and help you set up your macros to help you kind of dial in the eating side of things. Next week, just incorporating protein to every meal, and then making sure you're eating plenty of fruits, veggies, fiber, complex carbs to help keep you full. And so, yeah, just kind of beginner steps just for being able to get into the gym, being able to make good progress there. It just gets some foundational habits, foundational things out of the way, set in place before you start getting into more intricate workout programs, meal plannings, meal timings, things like that. You need to get those foundations out of the way first, or if you try to incorporate everything all at once, then it's going to be really tough and can definitely create a lot of different pitfalls. So anyways, somewhat of a long one today, but thank you so much for sticking around. Hopefully you watched the whole thing and were able to get something out of it. I think this is a fairly informative one that I think a lot of people can learn from, and that can be beneficial just to help with some potential hurdles in the future, injuries and how to eat and just getting started in the gym. And then for those of you out there just trying to put on size and get bigger and stronger, just kind of being able to help navigate through that. So thank you so much for checking out the podcast. I'd love to hear from you guys. So commenting in the YouTube comments of questions and stuff that you have, or just words of encouragement. This will be on, Apple Podcast, the Iron Mike Podcast, and it'll be on Spotify as well. Upload to YouTube. My Instagram handle is Mike_fit-by-strength. So be sure to follow there for all the other content that I'm putting out. Give me a follow. Comment on things if you've got questions there. I try to ask, in my stories, once a week of questions that clients have, but clients or consumers. My goal here is just to be able to help as many people as I can, a free resources for the people to go to, and try to be a little entertaining, but at the end of the day, I just want to be able to, if I can answer just a couple people's questions through them listening to this, and then that's a win for me. And I've gotten a lot of support from friends from all over the country that are watching and letting me know type thing. And so it's just super exciting. It's a good outlet for me. I enjoy doing this. I enjoy educating and just kind of helping shed some light on what I do and how I can help people. So thank you so much for tuning in and checking out the podcast, and we'll see you next week.